All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nick, and I'm going to be speaking to you about, well, a combination of social engineering in relation to how we can see that unraveling in our environments, in addition to how an attacker could exploit that physically in order for them to be able to execute several attacks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build some momentum around social engineering, and then I'm going to focus on how that can be leveraged from an aspect of physical attacks as well. Now, just a couple of introductory words about myself before we start. So as I said, my name is Nick and I'm a SANS instructor. I teach our Security 301 and our Security 401 classes. I focus on the cyber defense curriculum. So my focal areas are security operations centers and incident handling and incident response. So full cyber defense all the way. So the goal is to be able to take some things from those that we see in the trenches and put them into perspective into this presentation. So if we were to go in and see how the landscape would look like, and not me, but the landscape rather. Right, so if you see the taxonomy here, it's just a very, very basic breakdown on how effectively social engineering is combined with everything else. So if you go up here, for example, you'll see that there's all sorts of different things that you can have available. Now, the point is that, as I said, we do see quite a lot of these things out in the trenches, which is concerning because things pick up momentum all the time. So my goal is to give you a short chat about all of these things in order for you to be able to be aware of them and then to identify ways to protect. So first things first, the point here, so this is literally one of the emails that I got from my inbox. So I just snapped one of my inbox in order just to highlight an example. So what you're seeing here, I've just effectively redacted some of it, but I've highlighted the link. Now, the email itself here says that effectively there's someone who is supposedly wanting to have their Facebook password changed. I wouldn't get this because I don't even have a Facebook account. So the point is, if I think about this from a non-technical perspective, so say that I'm totally agnostic to IP addresses and all of those technical things, why would I even get this? I wouldn't, is my point. So from a basic security standpoint, very basic user behavior, I wouldn't even be expecting myself to get an email like that, is the simple way of seeing it. Since I'm not expecting it, then I should totally disregard and delete it. Or if it was my corporate email box, I should report it to my security team. So the reason why I call this out is, yes, if I was very technical, I could look at the IP addresses, I could look at the headers of the email, and I could do a gazillion other things, yes. But I don't have to, because as I said, I'm not necessarily expected to know all of these things. And this is not so well of a crafted email because up top in the informational box, well, the sender origin is, it's very, very poor. It doesn't even have something proper there, like at facebook.com. So not the best of emails, but obviously people do click on these things. So my point here is basic defense is user behavior and user education and training. So forget about all of the tools for a moment. It doesn't matter how many tools you have. You could have a gazillion tools, and if you go around the halls here, you'll find quite a lot of different vendors with varied levels of success. But the point is, you don't necessarily have that technology awareness all the time. So basic things like training people up to these things are what we're after. Now, the attacker has success because they're sending emails by the tons. So they can send 1,000 emails. If one person clicks on that and they provide credentials, that can be a solution for the attacker. The example here with Facebook is just a random example. It could be someone's banking details, it could be Facebook, it could be whatever. So that's another very important point to remember. So user training goes a very, very long way because the attacker has effectively zero cost for these attacks. So the only thing they need is just to send an email away for free. So that's one thing. Now, second thing, how would that attack unravel? So if I was to build momentum on that attack, what would I do? This is a free tool that we use in our offensive classes, as one example in our pen tests, which is called the Harvester. The Harvester can go into open source information and try to identify useful bits. What I've done here is I've run a reconnaissance with it against sans.org a few months back, and these are the things that I found. At the bottom, there's even a usable IP address. Now, I've left that one there because it's an open, in essence, email address, so People can find that on our website. So it's not that I'm giving someone's email away. But the point is, the attacker can leverage these things. They can cross-reference these things with other open source tools like this one. Now, this tool here is a tool which is freely available for us to be able to focus on sales. So this is called Hunter.io. Now, the tool's dashboard here is a free version, and I haven't registered for it with a paid account. But even on the free version, it gives me 126 results, it says at the bottom. And if I scroll down, I see all of these results. All of these are live email addresses. It only brings back live addresses, which again, you get it for free. So the attacker now finds all of these useful email addresses. What's the next step after those email addresses are found? Well, now they need to lure the target in. Now, how can they do that? Right, so this is another free tool. I'm only giving you free tools in order for you to understand how dangerous this is. This tool, we use it in pen tests, and it's called the Social Engineering Toolkit. So if you download an offensive variation like Parrot or Kali Linux or anything similar, this tool is included in there. So from all of these options, if I go on the first option, which allows me to focus on social engineering, then what I can do is I can mimic the SANS webpage. Does anyone see anything odd in that screenshot on the right-hand side? Just like literally, if you go to log into your SANS account, if you had one, or if you register for one, that's just the page that you'd see. So what's the odd thing there? If you can see it. Yeah, if you go up top at the URL, in this particular example, it just has a strike through because it doesn't have a certificate configured, and it just shows insecurity. But the point is, how many people out there you think are going to identify that? By the way, I use this as an example in order to denote this as a deficiency. But there are other tools out there that you can again build momentum in order to eliminate that. So you can configure, for example, a Let's Encrypt certificate, which is totally free, and you can make that strike through go away. And that IP address, it doesn't have to be a private one. It can actually be a publicly facing one because I can actually register a site which I can consume afterwards. So I can make this a more beautiful example. I'll show you that in a moment. But more than point, if you lure the victim in, when the victim types their email address and the password, that's what the attacker gets. They get their actual email address and their password. Because this is not the actual SANS website. It's a page that the attacker is hosting somewhere deliberately. It's a clone page. So then the question is, we've shown a deficiency there. How can we eliminate that, as I was saying? Right. This is another tool, which is again available for free. This tool is called URL Crazy, and it's a tool which you can use in order for you to get variations of a URL which are close to the URL that you are targeting. For example, I've targeted sans.org, but if you go here, it says san.org without the S, and it even tells you, you know, look, I've omitted a character for you. I've omitted the N, I've omitted the A, and so on and so forth. So the point here is that with this tool, what you can get is close variations to the sans.org website, which I've used in my example. That's what you can get. Now, with some of my clients, what we do is I find these things for them, and then they will register some of these domains proactively, so the attacker cannot register those domains after the fact. Also, another thing you can do is we can set up alerting for you. So if someone were to register some of these domains, if you had a SIEM tool or if you had a team, they can get a notification to see that, oh, you know what? This is actually out there. I'll have to be aware, because why would someone register a domain so close to my domain? It could be because they actually wanted to launch an attack afterwards. This is not the legitimate sans.org domain, as I was saying. This is a typo squatted domain. So we call this attack typo squatting or domain squatting. Now, if you combine that with what I showed you earlier, you're solving that deficiency if you put your attacker hat on, because you're registering a properly existing domain, which could be, for example, the first one, san.org. So then you're hosting the SANS clone page on that san.org. You can have a certificate registered against it and all of those nice things. So technically, The only way for someone to find that you're hosting a replica is for them to go up to the URL and squint, and they're like, oh, there's a name missing here. If you register a mail server, then you'd be sending something from nick@san.org, which would be one character different than my actual legitimate SANS email address. How many people are now going to say this? Even less than the previous ones. So these are things that attackers will do against us. Now, the point, what you're seeing here is, again, you're just seeing another example. The attacker can register servers of their own, email servers of their own, that is, and these are just some examples, so they can use those. So if, let's say, the previous that they were using falls under a filtering service or goes into a deny list or something like that, they can alter between these services so they send you phishing emails all the time. So all of these are techniques that they will use. Now, you might be wondering, what can I do about these things? Well, this is what the attackers will do. What we would want to do is any of these things. I'm not expecting you to read all of those suggestions. These are suggestions by the UK's NCSC, the National Cybersecurity Centre initiative. But the point is, train the people in the company. Train ourselves. This is just a very quick chat, but this could be a full-blown course, or it could be a full-blown training and awareness session. So the point is, train the staff members in order for them to identify the phishing email. So when the phishing email comes in, then obviously you can see it and say, yeah, you know what? I'm sending that to the security team. So that's the goal on something like that. Now, with that, you're looking at another perspective here. You're looking at the perspective of effectively yet other things. What other things can you be looking at? Let me just dismiss that window. Thanks. Right, so other things, other types, other variations of attacks. Other variations include phishing. Now, phishing these are just some scenarios, but I'll walk you over scenarios as well. So phishing is voice phishing, or voice solicitation, if you will. So when you get that call from someone saying, oh, you know what, I'm your ING bank manager, or your, for example, HSBC bank manager, whatever you get, that's an attempt for phishing. When we were in the pandemic, they used to try and leverage the fact that we were in the midst of the pandemic. So what they would do is they would call people and say, oh, you've been identified as coming in close contact with a COVID positive tested person. We need to give us, you need to give us all your details so we can actually obviously be able to take appropriate steps. But we all filled in those passenger locator forms when we traveled. So why would I need to give you details that you would need to have? I wouldn't need to do that, would I? Probably not. So there's something going wrong here. So those are the types of things that they would do. Now, the point with these things is that, again, the attacker is calling in the hope they will find a match. For example, if I know that ING is a big bank in Belgium and in Netherlands, I'll start calling people up using tools like the previous one I showed you, which on top of the emails, it finds phone numbers as well. So I'll use phone numbers and I'll call people up. I'll be like, hey, you know what? I'm Nick. I'm your account manager from HSBC or ING or whatever. Now, again, not everyone understands that this is a potential, obviously, attempt to do something malicious. A lot of people will have accounts with that bank if I choose a big bank. The point with these things is to try and avoid the panic factor. So when someone calls you and they say that they're from your bank, oh, you know what? Your account has been compromised. You need to give me your current password so I can reset it for you. But why would I need your current password to do that? The answer is, I wouldn't. So this principle from before stands. Always challenge it. You want to change your password? Fine. Go to your banking website and change your password proactively yourselves. Don't click on the link, or they say, I'm going to send you an email now, setting the scene. Forget that. Just go directly yourselves and do what you need to do. The good thing with this is that if you look at some of the statistics, like the ones at the bottom there, quite a lot of people became agnostic to these things. They understand now that effectively, because of these attacks are out there, they don't, for example, pick up the phone when it says caller ID hidden or restricted. But the attackers are smart themselves. So what have the attackers done? Well, the attackers have started using software like this. Now, this is my sudo. It's one application that works in the UK, in Canada, and the US. But there are numerous ones, obviously, that you can use as well. Why am I saying this? Because the attacker can spoof their side in order to look like 911, 111, or whatever. And that way, you'd think that there might be your HSBC account manager at the end, because it might say HSBC at the caller ID. You might even say, well, my account manager, for example, is a man, and I'm hearing a woman on the phone. Yeah, but with voice changers, you can do whatever you want. So all of these programs that you're seeing here are applications where you can make yourself seem as being a person of the opposite sex, or you can be, for example, younger, or you can be older, or whatever. At the bottom, you see me highlight Microsoft VASA, which there was an announcement recently, if you've heard about it, about artificial intelligence from Microsoft's side. And in effect, what they're saying here is that if you were to upload a picture from someone and you just give it about 10 or 15 seconds of voice samples for them, they can start making an actual recording of that person saying whatever. So it also mimics the face of someone making gestures like these or whatever. So you will be seeing this actually becoming even more dangerous as time progresses. So the reason I highlight this is going to become much worse as time progresses. In fact, if you think about banks, they have those automated IVR systems, the voice recording, where it says, you're hearing the robo voice and it says, to access your account, do this, say this or say that. The problem is, depending on how good the system is, this would be the attack for it. All of these are things that are being unraveled as we speak. So we will see how effective our defenses are, but these are things that you need to know about. Now, in addition to that, you have yet another vector of attack, which is smishing, which is effectively getting links over the phone. But why do you think I would do that? So if I was an attacker, why would I care about sending you a link over your email or over your phone? Why would I care about sending you an SMS instead, you think? What would be the difference? Great, so insight to your personal information. So there's different reasons, but the most predominant reason is the following. Say that this is your corporate laptop. This corporate laptop could have 1,500 different defenses on it. It could have an endpoint detection and response, a firewall on it, it could have an IPS, and 100 other things, including email filtering gateways and all of that. If it's my phone, especially if it's my personal phone, I'm not gonna have any of these things, possibly. So the point is that in the attacker's eyes, they're bypassing all of those corporate defenses by sending you the link, the same link, directly on your phone. So this is why smishing attacks are so dangerous as well. Now, this is a twist of that, which we call spamming. Gotta love the lingo in IT and in security. So this is the same effect, but this time it comes to you from an aspect of instant messaging. So your Facebook, for example, chat, or your WhatsApp chat, your Signal, your Telegram, and any other types of messaging applications like that. The problem with that is that, again, you may have less defenses on that particular device. It could be a tablet. It could be whatever. It could be your, for example, your Apple Watch or whatever watch, you're clicking on a link. So the point is that they're doing these things in order for them to take advantage of what your destination device is. What can I do? Again, awareness that these things are out there, like the discussions we're having now, are very important. So for example, why would I expect my CEO, this happens all the time, why would I expect my CEO to give me, like in one of my clients, the chief financial officer, nothing against them, but it's a fact. They have been phished twice, each time for £100,000. We're in pounds in the UK. So they've given the attackers £200,000. The security team has gone to the extent of us creating a specific very important person policy on the mail filtering gateway just for one person. It shouldn't be like that. They should know better. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to educate people against these types of things. So I would definitely not expect my CEO or my CFO to send me a directive over WhatsApp. Why would they? We get this reported from people all the time, but my question is always the same. Why would you expect, does the CEO of a 200,000 people company even know who you are or who am I? And if they do, why would they not be using the corporate tools to reach out to you? Why would they send you that random message over an application that you wouldn't even supposedly be using? That's the question that you should have. Now, if I couple that with how we can leverage things from a physical security standpoint, these are just very simplistic types of attacks, but these attacks are very powerful nonetheless. So for example, when I walk in through the door, which you might have heard of quite a lot, you can have someone performing a tailgating or piggybacking attack. It's just a definitional difference. One of them actually means that the person has a badge, like this one, but the badge could be fake. So if you scan the QR code, nothing comes back. The other one could be that I don't even have a badge and any awareness that someone is behind me. But the point is the same. You go through the door, there's a person behind you and they're like stacked with coffees. They're coming like this. Naturally, as a human being, you're like, well, I'm not gonna slam the door over their face. I'm going to hold it open so they can obviously be able to come in. Could be books, could be laptops, whatever. Simple things. You can say, hang on a minute, sir, hang on a minute, ma'am, let me help you. You take the books from them, they scan their badge, and they can come in. You're still helping them, but you're not holding the door open for them, you're just helping them in a different way, by notifying that they're a legitimate person. Now, the point with this is very, very an interesting attack because in a very crowded place, especially in the morning, like I used to work at JP Morgan Chase in central London, in Canary Wharf. That's the main European headquarters of JP Morgan. It's like a 30 or 25-story building. But the point is, do you know how many people are going there at 9 a.m.? There's like a queue of people all the way outside because everyone starts working at 9 a.m. So trying to do something like this is fairly direct if you try to pivot over to that technique I mentioned. What other is interesting for us? This is the most classical one that you would see in busy transportation hubs. Buses, metros, trams, airports, places like the conferences that you see here. You're doing something sensitive and someone is just naturally bumping into you. Do you need to do that important transaction, like that mobile banking transaction, in a busy train? If you do, how about this? You go off that train on the next stop, let's say it's a metro. You go off that train on the metro, you go to an area of the platform where it's just you, put your back into the wall, preferably no one's behind you, you do what you need to do. You might say, Nick, you know what? I can't do that. I'm on a busy train and I need to do that because it's my kid, for example, or a family member stranded somewhere. Fine, go to the bathroom. If it's a busy train, if it's an actual train, it has a bathroom, go there, you're by yourself, do the transaction, move on. But find a way for you to think about the fact that you need to be mindful of your surroundings. I'm not gonna log on to my mobile banking in a room with 100 people. Have you not been in a situation where people around you, especially some folks in sales, because they work tremendously with a lot of clients, what they do is they just have discussions all around. So someone will say, oh, we just scanned, for example, next company, 5,000 vulnerabilities, this. And I'm just there in the backside. Oh, thanks for that. So you have to be mindful about all of these things, simple things, but still you see people doing them all the time. So this is one of the most underestimated attacks, as this is. You might think, do people do these types of things? Dumpster diving attacks? They do. Because not every company out there effectively uses techniques in order for them to be able to expunge their actual sensitive data. Now, well, I have these two examples that I have, they relate to what you're seeing on the side there with Morgan Stanley. In 2016, Morgan Stanley had been an actual victim, not of dumpster diving in particular, but effectively what we call a failure into being able to wipe their media. So let me explain. When someone's data is there, usually what happens is people think about the data as the data is on a device, on an active project. Oh, yeah, the data needs to be protected, needs to be encrypted, and all of those nice things. But then you take the flash drive and you toss it away in a can, and someone finds it. This is what that attack is about. So in that one, there was an entity, a third party hired by Morgan Stanley, which supposedly would actually remove data securely, but it didn't. So there was data from clients that was actually resulting in hard drives or in hard drives and USB flash drives that was being resold onto eBay. And unfortunately, people would find that data afterwards. And they'd be like, what is this? And this is a tier 1 bank. Now, example 1 is 2016. Example 2 is September of 2022, actually, where the same thing happens again. They've been fined both times, 35 million and 60 million each time. Well, this has nothing to do with, obviously, Morgan Stanley in particular. Again, it's just a fact that this is something that has happened twice. So it might not be dumpster diving per se, but you have to think about the data as the data departs the environment as well. If you find all of these things that I've been speaking about interesting, this list of books here from the late Kevin Mitnick, unfortunately Kevin passed away last year, a big loss to the industry as obviously a tremendous input from Kevin throughout the years. And he started his career being a kid doing what kids did back in the day, a bit of phone freaking and a bit of other things. But the books that he's written, they denote attacks like the ones that I'm describing in a very loose format. No real technical jargon or anything around it. They give you things that have been happening at the time that Kevin did in order to infiltrate companies, and they make you have more awareness about how these attacks work. So awareness, my final conclusion is that awareness is monumental in order for you to be protected. That's how I would phrase it. Thank you for all your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has, if there is anything. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much for your time.